Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Football for Thought. I am Tyler Dozon, and this is episode 8. In this episode, we're diving straight into the XFL playoffs. Winner goes home. We also have the USFL playing their normal 4 games with their 8 teams. And then, of course, they did have the NFL draft, but I'm not going to be touching on that in this episode of Football for Thought. I actually have a separate episode coming out just for the draft itself. But let's jump straight in to the XFL playoffs. All right, and to start off this XFL weekend, the first game was the Houston Roughnecks versus the Arlington Renegades. Houston Roughnecks favored to win with a 7-3 record, and the Arlington Renegades favored to lose with a 4-6 record. And to open this game off, the Renegades start off with the ball, and Luis Perez has been looking good ever since his trade from the Vegas Vipers over to the Arlington Renegades. He marches his team down the field, and on the opening drive, Perez steps up in the pocket and throws the ball to the right of the end zone, making the first score of the game, Arlington up. The Roughnecks could not do anything with their drive, so Arlington then gets the ball back. And Luis Perez says, "I'm not done yet. We are making a statement." And they call an amazing play, leaving wide receiver wide open down the middle of the field. So Luis Perez connects with him for a 58-yard touchdown. Now the Renegades are up 14-0 at the start of the second quarter, and it's looking a little scary to be a Roughnecks fan. And now for the next drive of the Houston Roughnecks, they finally go and get themselves some points on the board by handing the ball off to Cox, and he just goes straight up the middle to get them their first score of the game. Do not be fooled. Arlington did not let up, scoring 9 more points unanswered before the half, making the score 23-8. The Roughnecks are not looking good right now, but it is the XFL, and they have a whole other half of football you can play. We can easily come back and win this game. And that must have been the speech the Roughnecks went over in the locker room, because instantly on the opening kickoff, Arlington fumbles the ball, giving it to the Roughnecks, the turnover that they needed. But they can only score 3 points off of this turnover, and sadly, that is the last points the Roughnecks will score in the entire game. Not only is it the last points that the Roughnecks will score, but also Arlington only scoring 3 points in this whole second half. It was a very good defensive half, but the Roughnecks offense could not make up for any of the points in time that they lost. So the Arlington Renegades are now South Division champions, with the final score being 26-11. Congratulations to the Arlington Renegades for becoming the South Division champions, especially with the record of 4-6. Very bad record. No one would have thought they would have won, but they clearly came in this game playing better than the Roughnecks and showing right here, right now, they were a better team. Of course, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, especially losing to them just last week, but Arlington came out, showed them that we were the better team today, and I believe, watching that game, Arlington deserved to win. But speaking of the South Division champions, let's go ahead and move over to the North Division championship game. And now over in the North Division championship, we have the Seattle Sea Dragons that just snuck their way into the playoffs versus the 9-1 DC Defenders. This was a great game, really in the beginning, in the first half, and I was very hyped to watch this one because it was probably the 2 best teams going at it in the league. So to start this game off, the Sea Dragons get the ball, and Ben DiNucci just makes an incredible throw, pressure all in his face, to bring the ball down, but does not get in the end zone. Instead, the Sea Dragons end up having to settle for 3 on their opening drive of the game. But luckily for the Sea Dragons, the same thing happened for the DC Defenders. Ta'amu finds a wide open tight end in Moore for a 57-yard gain, but doesn't end up in a touchdown. It also ends up in 3, them both evening the score with a field goal. The next drive for the Sea Dragons, nothing really happens, but DC then gets the ball, and they finally let their star Lucky Jackson show late in the first quarter, and he makes an inside post, turns it into a 44-yard touchdown, and now DC on top 9-3. But the Sea Dragons are not going to be pushed away. Opening drive of the second quarter, DiNucci throws a freaking missile between 2 defenders, over 2 defenders, right to Ja'Cour Pearson in the end zone, now tying the game 9-9. It's a very close game right now. So going into half 9-9, it is a very close game. We don't really know who's going to push out. It's really best team is going to emerge later on in this game. It's going to take all 4 quarters for this to happen. With DC getting the ball back on the opening drive of the second half, they let Abram Smith finally punch it into the end zone, making the score 9-15. Abram Smith's been a little quiet, but he's starting to emerge in the second half. Seattle's still not able to do much. Tamu comes out once again and connects with his tight end Moore, but this time for a touchdown, now making the score 9-23. DC is starting to pull away and really fast right now. We fast forward to the beginning of the fourth, and DC scores once again, making the score 9-30, and it looks just impossible at this point for the Sea Dragons to come back for the DC Defenders. And the final score shows it all, being Seattle 21 points and DC 37 points. Honestly, the last game, like I said, it was best team on the field was the Arlington Renegades. Houston was giving it their all, but the Renegades bested them. And this one, it really was the Sea Dragons that lost themselves this game. So many penalties, so many flags. It was not looking like how the Sea Dragons normally were. I mean, just this game alone, 3, maybe 4 12-man on the field penalties. And after your first one, you should learn to watch the field or just not have that personnel out there. They were getting caught left and right with false starts, roughing the passer, personal fouls, just everything coming out wrong for the Sea Dragons. And I do think it would have been a closer game if it wasn't for that. But DC went ahead and pulled away, and they became the North Division champions. Congratulations to the DC Defenders with the best record in the league. It was no shock they would go ahead and win this, but they will be facing the 4-6 Arlington Renegades on May 13th. So we're going to be skipping 1 week of the XFL. They need a little time to take a break, but a new winner will be crowned of the XFL for the first time since 2001. So 22 years, a winner will be crowned. So this is very important for the XFL itself, but also just very awesome for these players and everyone that had the opportunity to play in the XFL. But that's it for the XFL. Now we're going to go over to this other spring football league in the USFL. All right, and now for the USFL, we start off the weekend with the Birmingham Stallions versus the New Orleans Breakers, game we've all been waiting for. This is only the first of their 2 matchups, and they both came in being undefeated at 2-0. The Breakers go ahead with Bethel Thompson and Wes Hills and just dominate the Birmingham Stallions. It was close in the first half, but they went on winning 45-31, and now the New Orleans Breakers are the only team that is undefeated at 3-0. Next up, we have the Memphis Showboats versus the Houston Gamblers, and this one might have been a little too close to call for the Houston Gamblers, but they ended up winning the game 30-26. Now, Memphis Showboats being the only team that has not won a single game. Pretty awkward, especially since they just got brought back into this league, not being there in Season 1. Then we head over to the Pittsburgh Maulers versus the Philadelphia Stars. Definitely thinking Philadelphia is going to pull away, but the Maulers get this game 21-13, making the Maulers get their first win of the season. And last, but certainly not least, we have the New Jersey Generals versus the Michigan Panthers. This game is pretty important early on in the season because it kind of just puts someone at the standings, but doesn't mean much for later on. Right now, though, the New Jersey Generals went on top of the Michigan Panthers 28-13, and now the Michigan Panthers are not undefeated, but also the New Jersey Generals are on the top of the North standings. And that about does it for the USFL. Like I said in my earlier videos, not going to touch too much in depth in these videos about the USFL until the XFL goes and ends on May 13th. But wait, that's not it. Like I mentioned earlier on in the video, I did make an NFL draft team grades. It's like a tier list type of video, and I am currently editing that right now. So be on the lookout for that later on in the week, but I will have 2 uploads for you guys this week. As for this episode of Football for Thought, it is now came to a close. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of the XFL playoffs, if you are happy or sad about a team losing or just the XFL ending in general, as well as the USFL if you guys have been checking that out, or anything you'd like to say, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. I check them every video. But for now, I am Tyler Dozak, and I'll catch y'all in the end zone.